There is a serious man crisis. 1 in 3 Catholic men that have been baptized have left the faith.
If you're a thinking person, you've asked yourself that question, why am I here?
Not only does God have a plan for your life, so does Satan.
Good evening. Welcome back. I'm Brother Joseph William, creator and host of KNIGHTSCLub, Knights of Columbus, Benedict Council 2355 broadcast on Spectrum and worldwide on YouTube since 2021. Tonight marks our first episode in Season 3. What began as a discernment of God's will using the St. Ignatius method has become an inspirational forum for Knights, parishioners, families, and children. We kick things off now with an exciting clip from Trinity's Triumph, an independent, compelling movie that is gaining serious interest and reviews. I'm especially excited to interview the movie's creator and producer, Bergen County's own Father Stephen Fitcher, who will discuss its premise of peeling back the stained glass curtain on the priesthood.
2 on 2, let's go, and loser washes dishes.
Yo! Hey, Grouchy, come here. Sit down, have some kung pao chicken.
Shall we take a peek? Even just 3 people can hold up the entire world. You are setting out on an extraordinary odyssey to answer the highest of all calls. How do you handle it when you've fallen in love with somebody?
I wouldn't.
I said when.
We're all just trying our best.
I'm not talking about this, I've decided.
I don't know if it's serious.
I'm telling the truth.
You've been pushing this anger down for years. You didn't cause anything. He abused his power and betrayed your trust.
And where was God when that was happening?
What are you gonna do to stop? I'll do whatever I damn well have to. Joe, come on. You're my best friend, you're my brother.
But you're free to leave a message.
Don't think it, Tom. Feel it. None of us can fly unless we leap first. Even just 3 people can hold up the entire world.
Welcome to KNIGHTSCLub, Father Stephen.
Thank you.
Really
Brother
appreciate
Joseph.
you taking the time to talk about your movie, Trinity's Triumph.
Thank you.
And we'd like to start out with some questions.
Sure.
And the first question is, how did you conceive of Trinity Triumphs at the point of discerning God's will? As a seminarian, you were very young.
I
And
was
can
very
you
young.
go into progress of how that evolved over time into the movie?
Sure. So I entered the seminary in 1986, and then from 1993 to 2000, I was living in Rome. So I studied for 14 years to be a priest. Lots of studies, different languages, lots of master's degrees, finally got a doctorate at the end, so a lot of that. But about 1998, I had this idea that I thought it would be really good if we could make a movie that would be inspirational to the modern generation of young people at the time. Now, when I had grown up, I remember seeing some of these older movies, these like black and white movies of Bells of St. Mary's or Going My Way, where Bing Crosby was the parish priest, a beloved figure in the community. And then starting in like the 90s, when you had some films, the priest wasn't this exalted figure anymore, but maybe he could be the villain in a movie, or, it was a portrayal that was very different, I thought. And Michael Medved, who used to work for PBS, I remember he made a documentary called Hollywood versus Religion, in which he was showing how, sadly, there was this transformation where no longer was religion held up, but sometimes seen as like the culprit. So it was in that context, as I said, 1998, I just got this idea. I was a few years away from my ordination. I've been in the seminary for about 12 years. And I thought, just like Jesus was an amazing storyteller, I thought if he were here today, he would be trying to tell the story that would reach, other people. So on a lark, I sent it to Franco Zeffirelli, the great Italian filmmaker.
Absolutely.
His film, Jesus of Nazareth, that 8-hour-long film, was always one of my favorites growing up. So I sent it to him thinking, I don't know if I'll ever hear back. But in a short while afterwards, I got the phone call that said he really liked your script and he'd like to meet you. So I went out to his villa. It was on the outskirts of Rome, and we spent an entire Sunday afternoon. And the basic essence of what he was telling me, which is what I brought into our current version of the film, he said, instead of making it the story of one young man, why don't you make it the story of 3 young men? And then maybe each one of them can take a different path. He said from a filmmaking concept, I think that would be easier and better to work with. So I said, okay, great. And then, but at that time I was studying, I was working, I was traveling a lot. And so around that time, there was a woman at my previous parish that she was into television and radio production. And I shared with her, I said, listen, this is what I wrote. This is what Zeffirelli told me. This is what's happened in the ensuing last 6 years or whatever. I really want to go back and see if we can remake this and re-edit it. And we did. And as we did that, the woman in my previous parish, you probably heard of her, Mary Higgins Clark.
Oh, sure,
the
absolutely.
great mystery writer.
Wonderful mystery
And Mary was almost like a grandmotherly figure to me. We were very, very close. And I said, Mary, Kathy Carson and I have written this script based on the history that I just shared with you. And, I want you, Mary, just give me an honest opinion. Just tell me, if this is a piece of junk, please tell me so I don't waste any more time. But if you think this is good, let us know. And so Mary really loved it. And she called Kathy and I over to her house. And she started talking about some of the character development and how we could bolster it and things like that. So Kathy and I went through another rewrite. As Kathy likes to say, that the stack of rewrites that we have are actually taller than Kathy is herself. We had a few forays into Hollywood, trying to work with people. I got bruised along the way, let's say. Definitely things that just didn't work out. And there were different stages where I was going to just give up. And that, talking about discerning God's will, every once in a while I realized that, maybe this isn't meant to be. I mean, I have it in my heart. I feel that God put it in my heart, but I just keep running into these roadblocks.
As we talk about challenges and we talk about the inspiration that kept you going in spite of it, and as you just said, I'm going to give up. What am I doing? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe it's not God's will.
Right.
I understand that. And you suddenly kept on going in spite of. Was a lot of prayer involved with
prayer.
Keep on going.
Yeah, a lot of prayer, and that, that determination that you felt that God put it in your heart and you wanted to bring it to fruition and you want to work through those challenges and obstacles. But it was a friend that I also went to high school with at Bergen Catholic, and he was coming in from California. He was working in the entertainment industry. Told him about all the priestly work I was doing and the academic work. And I said, also, I have this, film that I've been working on. He goes, well, let me see it. And I said, sure. So I gave it to him. And he said to me, he goes, this is really good. You should really get in contact with my brother. And so his brother then joined the project because his brother had worked on a few independent films. So we went with this company and they introduced us to Michael Wickham. We did all of the filming in just 3 weeks.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was really incredible. And we shot in New York and New Jersey. I was calling in favors from so many different friends.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, exactly. Because we had no money for it. So, we went to Christian Healthcare Center to film our hospital scenes. We went to the Brick House to film our restaurant and bar scenes. Even Vanderplaat lent us a coffin. Vanderplaat here in Michael, they lent us a coffin for the scene that you remember, the prank that's played. And then we filmed both at Fordham and Caldwell University. So it was really great. So I thought at that stage, all of the obstacles were overcome. Okay. We got the money, we filmed it, and we were out in LA end of February 2020. We did all of our editing. We were so excited. And then what happened in March 2020.
COVID. Coronavirus, unfortunately, played a very difficult part in launching your movie, attendance-wise, and many other things
Yes.
that were going on. I want to just go back and get your take on Monsignor Heck and the three young seminarians and the goal you wanted to accomplish in the movie and bringing out the trials, the tribulations, the discernment of God's will to become priests.
Sure. Yeah, so each of the characters in the movie were really based on real life characters. So everything that you see happening in the movie is either because of something that happened in my life or one of my friends' life. So, for example, Monsignor Heck, who plays the big role of being the mentor in the film, he's based on my own spiritual director. And even some of the names, actually all of the names, have a significance in my own life. But what we were trying to do is we were really trying to humanize the priesthood. We wanted to take it off that pedestal of perfectionism, right? Where people were thinking, oh, the priest does everything right. And there's, it's almost like a demigod or something, which is false. We're human beings like anyone else. But then the opposite thing, especially when the pedophile crisis came, everyone's like, all priests are all bad. And that's also false, right?
Terrible.
So we wanted to look for that middle ground. How could we show the priesthood for what it is and its real humanity, but also how could we attract the next generation? So where we're not afraid to show that, hey, as a Catholic Church, we're imperfect. As I always say to people, the Church is divinely instituted, but humanly constituted. And that's really what our film is looking to do.
From my experience in watching the film, you certainly accomplished that.
Thank
And you felt what was going on with the three seminarians. And you talked about celibacy and the problems of accepting God's will or not. You brought that out in the movie in an overwhelming manner that I simply did not have that understanding, the human understanding of the seminarian becoming a priest, which carries through the whole movie.
Yes.
With Monsignor Heck and how your story occurred and how they dealt with it. I think anyone that watched that movie, parishioners, laymen, non-Catholics, really got an insight into priests and who they really are in the human world we live in.
Thank you. And Brother Joseph, I totally agree with you. I found so many people when they saw the movie, whether they're Catholic or not, or some are even atheists that have spoken to me, they said, wow, that really changed my vision of the church, changed my vision of the priesthood. But it's also one thing I always try to tell everyone, it's not just about priest. Yes, that is the premise of the movie. But as you know, Monsignor Heck gives that lesson at the very beginning, that Vita lesson, V-I-T-A. And that's really the lesson for all of us, whether you're religious or not, whether you're Catholic or not, that lesson at the beginning of the movie. And that's why I know a lot of people who are watching it now a second time or a third time, like, oh, now I get there's another level to your movie. And that's something that we were really trying to look at, because if it's just a movie about seminarians or priests, as valid as that is and as helpful that is to, as Kathy likes to call it, like look over the garden wall, look through the stained glass window and see what is the real life like of priest. It's a life lesson that's really there for everyone. And I do hope that all of your viewers, all of you watching us right now, please, please, please go to trinitystriumph.com. And when you click onto our website, you can see it's on Apple TV, it's on Amazon, it's on YouTube, Google Play, a plethora of platforms. And if you're not good with those things, ask your child or your grandchild.
I could tell our viewers right here, when I watched it for the first time, as I told you before, it really grabbed me. I got a great understanding of the human aspect of being a priest. And I know for sure, I haven't had time since I reviewed it a week ago, but I will watch it for the second time, maybe the third time, because it's so important what's going on there, to assimilate it, to embrace it, to understand it. It will give those that watch it a whole new picture of priesthood, humanity, and everything that goes along with it, from sin to heaven. It's incredible.
Yeah, and there's everything in it. There's romance, there's comedy, there's drama, there's all these different elements. So I think a lot of people have told me, Like, Father, I was going to tell you it was a good movie, just I wanted to be polite. But wow,
Yeah, it is.
that
It is a
really
well movie.
surprised me. That was really, really good. So
One question I have is sort of goes to the heart of naming it Trinity's triumph. Can you give me a macro on that? I get it, but I want to hear it from you, Father.
Yeah, so we were really trying to play on a few different elements. We thought when people hear the word Trinity, right away you're going to think, okay, this is a religious movie. When you hear the word triumph, you know it's going to have a happy ending. So we wanted to make sure people were aware of that. But Trinity plays in a lot of different ways. There's the Trinity of God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and you see them blessing and praying. They're obviously Catholic seminarians and priests, but it's also the Trinity of their friendship, Joe, Tom, and Mike, which is a wonderful friendship. You can see they're all likable guys, but like every friendship, it's tested, and there's tensions, and there's misunderstandings, and there's difficulties, and that's where we really wanted to show that. And it goes back to that vita lesson, you know, the truth, the integrity. But above all, it's a movie about the endurance of friendship. And that's right. Remember when Monsignor Heck gives the lesson at the beginning of the movie, he says, always be friends, always be good friends to each other. And I don't know about you and your experience of friendships, right?
Absolutely.
Some people you get along really well with, but then once in a while there's a little misunderstanding and something happens. And when that misunderstanding happens, that's when you delve in deeper and you forgive each other and you move forward. And that's what we show. And at the end, you know, it's like Monsignor Heck says at the very end, your Trinity has triumphed, right? Which is basically your love has triumphed, your friendship has triumphed through all the trials and tribulations.
We talked a little about before, and you mentioned to the fact that you've talked to parishioners, other priests, and laymen, and their responsiveness to the movie, which is exceptionally a plus. Looking at the priests in general and what's occurring here, with most recently with Pope Francis in the Vatican on excluding Latin, there are changes occurring in the church that I think are productive. Mm-hmm. The Catholic Church, in the views of research I've done, has gone from an exceptional embracement of the theology of Roman Catholic faith to somewhat disintegrating and losing parishioners and losing. And we all know there's many things occurring in the real world in the 21st century that distracts people, that takes them away from the focus of their creator, of what's real, true, divine love, joy, and happiness in your life. If it isn't our creator, you're not going to get it in the world through Game Boy.
Right.
How did you see the reaction of the priest to changing, not only because of the movie it did, but what could be coming downstream?
Yeah, I think that's a deep question, and it's a futuristic question. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but you know, we as priests, as Catholic priests, we know that Pope Francis is our vicar of Christ. He is a successor of St. Peter, and that's the one we're following. And before him, it was Benedict XVI. Before him was John Paul II. Everyone has a hard time with change. But those changes, I really do believe, are led by the Holy Spirit, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we believe in our church, that it really is the Holy Spirit leading us and guiding us. So the priesthood has changed, the church has changed. But to your point about how people maybe are going to Mass less frequently now, religious affiliation isn't as strong now. Some of my research that I've done has helped me to see that, you know, in the United States, I would say, it's really, which sounds crazy perhaps, but I really do believe that sports has become the new religion.
The new God. The
new God, right? For example, when I was a child growing up, there were no soccer games or baseball games, you know, during a Sunday morning or whatever. So we don't have time to go to church, to worship and things like that. But I mean, I listened to people, like I remember one woman years ago, she told me, she goes, "Oh, Father, I'm so sorry, I wasn't at Mass yesterday." I was like, "Oh, well, what happened?" She goes, "Well, I had to drive 4 hours down to, I don't know, Randolph, New Jersey. I stood outside in the freezing cold rain as my daughter was playing soccer. Then we had to have lunch, and then she had another game, and then we drove back, and it was raining. By the time I got home, it was like too late." And I didn't say it to her, but I felt like saying, well, like, you did go to your church. You know, your church was your soccer field, and that was where you were worshiping. So And I think that's because we've gotten so caught up. And I love sports. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think sports are great for kids. It teaches them, a good conduct, teamwork, self-sacrifice. I mean, there's so many good things that come with sports, but it's like we've exalted it where, sometimes we'll have kids say, oh, I can't go to the confirmation retreat because I have a, soccer practice. It's like, what's more important, like God or soccer? And sadly, that's what's happening. But the other thing, that's also why we address it in the film, sociologically, from the research we've done and stuff, the sexual abuse crisis by priests really affected this current generation of young Catholics. If you think of a 20-year-old today, their entire life, you associate the priesthood with sexual abuse. Now, you and I are old enough to remember times before that where you wouldn't make that association, but that's all they've heard. If you've been born 2004 forward, that's all you associate with. So that's why we wanted to bring in, sorry, just to finish this thought, that's why we wanted to bring in the sexual abuse crisis, because we didn't want to sweep it under the carpet. We said it's a reality. Thank God it's a very small reality, and it's horrible for the children who've been abused by the priests. It's horrible for the families. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. And I wanted people to know as well, we were outraged by that. I remember the first weekend after the news broke up in Boston, if you remember. I remember I got up into the pulpit and I broke down. I just started crying and crying because of how much damage those priests did and how much they sullied the church and then the priesthood. So I also wanted to show that aspect, that we were just as outraged, and in some ways probably more, because it affects us, in a very intimate way in our professions.
And recapping in a conclusion, I look at this and I watched the movie. I was absolutely inspired by it.
Great.
It changed my mind, it enlightened me, educated me.
Good.
And I hope this also entered my mind in hearing your answers, that there's so many questions going beyond the movie. You answered a great part. And I wonder about a sequel.
Oh, very good. Brother Joseph, yes. So our desire is to do a sequel. A lot of that, however, will depend on if we can get the money back to our investors, because I would love to go back to the investors and say, hey, we did one successful thing. Maybe we could do another one at another time. So this is where I really reach out to all of you that are watching this interview. Whatever you can do by supporting us, we would really greatly appreciate it, so that we can continue to spread, the message of Jesus far and wide.
If you want greater faith and love in your heart, watch the movie. I'm telling you, it's great. God bless you all.
God bless. Thanks, everyone.
Coming up is a small sampling of the good and godly deeds of our Council's Shining Knights. Included are some great pics of the many charitable and religious activities we sponsor throughout the year. The top left, Council 2355 brothers are holding Christmas gifts to be donated to the University Hospital Pediatric Ward. To the right, Grand Knight Guy de Napoli and Claudia Tarabaccia hand fellow brother Father Bonnie a $500 donation for his charity to help those in need in his Nigerian hometown. The middle left is a candid shot of a proud Father Nero, a fellow brother celebrating his installation as pastor of the Church of the Epiphany. For our Cooperative Council Reach Out, Brother Joseph William presented Knights Club, Episode 7, at Madonna Roman Catholic Church. Shown are Fort Lee Grand Knight Tony Rinaldi and Brother Paul, creators of Gathering. Far right, Council 2355 members and volunteers give out Halloween treats in front of Sedona's Tap Room in Cliffside Park. Bottom left, Brother Joseph William presents the Knights Club mission at the Bergen County Federation Knights of Columbus meeting. Finally is a group shot of Knights celebrating at the Pride in Our Priest Dinner, along with many priests and dignitaries from Bergen County. Moving on from one Stephen to another, I'm honored to introduce the president of the Knights of Columbus Bergen County Federation, Brother Stephen Martin, who will enlighten us on some benevolent ways our brotherhood carries out the legacy of charity, unity, and fraternity daily. And of course, patriotism. If you could address the mission and try to tie it into what the Federation accomplishes in its mission.
The Bergen Federation is I like to call it a cooperative confederation of all the councils in Bergen County. Its mission is the same as the Knights of Columbus, the principles of charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism. What's our goal? We're in service, just like the Knights of Columbus, we're in service to our church, our priests, and our community. And we try to bring everyone together as one unit as best we can to achieve those goals. You mentioned earlier, we mentioned the fourth element of our mission is patriotism. The Federation this year was able to reinvigorate the Mass at the Veterans Home, which is very, very important to a lot of our members who are veterans. And I just came from a Mass there this afternoon. You walk out of the Mass like that, reinvigorated as a member of the Knights, because your faith is, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of resurrected. All right, you're there at a Mass with some people who are very, very happy to see you. And through the efforts of some of the councils to get priests there, that's one of the things we're doing. Community, last Sunday at the Bergen County St. Patrick's Day Parade, we tried to institute this year to get more councils involved. That's what I was looking for. And this year we had about 6 or 7 councils. March was down Washington Avenue in Bergenfield. We had the 4th degree there. We had 9 or 10 members of the 4th degree there. Unbelievable, leading us down Washington Avenue. And I heard it back later about the presence of the Knights of Columbus at that event was really striking and for a lot of people, because let's face it, Joe, a lot of people don't know us. And my mission was try to get the Knights out there in other areas. And I guess that's the long and the short of it as an introduction.
When we talk about the Knights getting involved on the council level to the Federation, which inspires us all to do more in charity and unity, which is great. And especially, I have to mention, a few weeks ago when you gave me the opportunity to appear with KNIGHTSCLub and present our mission and what we do, it was a collaborative effort where we were able to bring our message of faith development cooperative efforts to all the Grand Knights there and the other dignitaries that were there that support the Federation at the state level. We had a few. And that led me to just go into one focus on that, is the fact that this would have never happened unless you had Father Stephen there on Trinity's Triumph, which was the main speaker before I gave my speech, and he's a hard act to follow. It was terrible.
You mentioned that, yeah. He was the first time I met Father Stephen. I'd spoken to him, and that was a big highlight of our meeting. We had a big turnout. You were there, and you jokingly said it's a tough act to follow, and he was. But it's another part of getting the Catholic message out. A lot of people didn't know who he was. Honestly, I wasn't familiar with his work. A priest up in Wyckoff. He's heavily involved in the educational hierarchy of the archdiocese. And it was an interesting evening, and it was important for him to get his message out also, and the story that he told in that movie.
Well, it was terribly impressive to me, where the next day I called him. If it wasn't for the Federation and you give me that opportunity, certainly we would have had another episode, but this was a focused episode of something of tremendous value to the human aspect of the priesthood that Father Stephen delivers in Trinity Triumph.
Also, he's a local boy. He's from Tenafly, New Jersey.
Yeah.
He went to my high school, Bergen Catholic. Not when I was there. He went there years after I did, about 10 years. And I didn't know that when I was speaking to him. So he's a local priest. He's making a difference in the world. And to me, that was a big part of the message that evening.
Now, I'd like to get to you on a question.
Sure.
President Steve. What was your introduction to becoming a knight, and how you moved up the ranks to be president of the Bergen County Federation?
Well, I mean, I was a parishioner at St. Mary's in Dumont, and that's when we had they had church drives, and they recruited me there. So they asked me to join, and you learn more about the organization. Eventually, you rise to the top, I guess. So this is my year, Joe.
Well, certainly we appreciate the sacrifice certainly you have to go through in the prep for these meetings in conjunction with your law practice in New York, representing who's who in New York.
As you know, we're a great organization, embedded in the Catholic faith, and I'm proud to be a member of the Knights of Columbus.
Thanks again. Appreciate your time and effort, and God bless you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
It took Father Fitcher 25 years to take his beautiful creation from script to screen, overcoming many trials and tribulations along the way. We've all been blessed with many gifts and talents. As good caretakers of God's grace, it's up to us, however, to make them count. Jesus says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." Something to think about. Before we say goodnight, I would like to conclude this episode with a blessing for all our viewers' intentions for healing and miracles in their lives. Blessed Mother of Guadalupe, pray for us and bless us. Blessed Father Michael McGivney, founder of the Knights of Columbus, pray for us and bless us. Good night, all. God love you.